Hi everyone, today I'll be talking about my local train group, the Burnley group, about the history, timetables, junctions, travel tips, and we'll look up towards the future. We first start off with the history. The Burnley group was opened in stages in the 1880s and 1920s and was electrified in the 60s. The station with 4 platforms is of course Burnley, although there is another station that had, but we'll get to that later. Burnley Station is the main interchange of all the lines in the group, being the Belgrave, Lilydale, Alamein, and Glen Waverley lines, even if Burnley isn't big of a station. We'll start with Ringwood Station. Ringwood is the main starting interchange, carrying the Belgrave and Lilydale lines. The station opened in 1882 and served 1.5 million annual passengers, and was home to Eastland Shopping Centre. The station has 3 platforms, 6 sidings at the east of the station. All but one siding can hold 2 trains. We'll start which platform carries the up or down trains. Platform 1 on weekday mornings and afternoons is used for the Belgrave up trains, with Platform 2 is the up Lilydale trains, then on Platform 3 is used for down trains and can sometimes terminate. On weekends there wasn't a conflict between different lines. For example, a Belgrave down train departs from Platform 3 and shortly after a Belgrave up train arrives, so there wasn't a conflict. You can see pretty much a lot of trains in the sidings on the weekends and off-peak. I remember going to the woods and lakes spotting trains there. When I was about 4, my dad and I were taking a train from the Lilydale line to Ringwood and saw a Comminges train, which was common back then. Anyway, back to Ringwood. In evening peak and during night, you could see down trains from Flinders Street reach Platform 2 and continue to their destination. It also happens on weekend mornings too. Some trains do terminate at Ringwood and head into the sidings. It usually happens during the end of morning peak, the middle of the off-peak, and for peak hour. Down to Lilydale, there are some stations that terminate, being Murrelbach, and of course Lilydale. The reason is probably that it can change tracks before it arrives at Murrelbach, so it can reach Platform 1. Sometimes the 6 p.m. train decouples and one of the trains goes not in service, while the other half heads to Lilydale and off to the sidings. Over at Lilydale, this station terminates at both platforms. During the peaks, it uses both platforms, but on the weekends it only uses Platform 1. Both of these stations are grade separated to get rid of the level crossings, and are turned into sky rails and reopened in November 2021. It'll also get rid of Cave Hill Road level crossing and a few more level crossings at Croydon and Ringwood East by 2025. Once the evening peak starts, trains sometimes depart to the sidings for parking. When the trains are finished their day, they would stay at the sidings all day on weekends, as well as shunting back to the platforms for the morning peak. Down the line beyond the sidings is the Warburton and Healesville line, both of which are now closed during the 60s, and is now turned into bike trails. I might let someone explain the lines in the comments. Onto the Belgrave lines, it's almost the same story, apart that there's sidings at Bayswater, but it as well has a maintenance depot for projects, which opened in 2001. Another 2 crossings were removed and reopened Bayswater Station, lowering the tracks in December 2016. Near the hills is Upper Ferntree Gully. This station also has sidings, but as well as a terminating station, around 5 to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Belgrave Station is of course the end of the line, but take a walk along the path and you can see that there's train tracks. This is called Puffing Billy. It opened in the 1960s and is a train line which reaches all the way to Gembrook. I'll leave someone else to explain the railway since it would take so much time in this video. Besides the crossings at Bayswater, Boronia was dangerous and congested. During the mid-90s it was finally removed and grade separated, and turned Boronia from side platforms to an island platform, removing Boronia Road level crossing. There's also works to get rid of Bedford Road level crossing by 2025. We now finally go beyond Ringwood, seeing 4 stations grade separated, with Heatherdale upgraded twice. First was in 2007 during Eastlink works, and removing Heatherdale Road level crossing in February 2017. Mitcham Road, and Rooks Road Mitcham, lowering the station on Australia Day 2014. Nunawading Station, removing Springvale Road, and upgrading the station into a cool design in April 2010. And we head to Blackburn Station. Blackburn Road was removed in February 2017. This station is pretty interesting, because there's train terminating at Blackburn. Although they are slower trains considering they have to stop all stations to Flinders Street. They do terminate at platform 2, while down trains arrive at 3. But these services only happen during the weekday peaks. Then we move another 2 stations to Box Hill. Box Hill was opened in the 1st of December 1882 and it received a lot of upgrades. With the first one removing Station Street level crossing in the 60s, and upgraded to be underneath Box Hill Central. Remember there was an exception in one of the stations. There was 4 platforms for a year, but a macas built over the entrance of Platform 1. It might be confusing for people who are new to Melbourne or public transport. Just pretend that Platform 2 is 1. In the mornings it's an interesting but complicated way to describe this, but Platform 2 is used for stopping all station trains or except East Richmond, while Platform 3 is used for limited express trains. And finally on 4 is for down trains heading to the lines and Blackburn. Box Hill's the 10th busiest station with 3.685 million passengers, and it's the busiest non-interchange station outside the CBD. Not only there's Box Hill Central, but you can also change for a tram and see a mixture of A and C class running on Route 109. Past 5 stations then we arrive at Camberwell. Opened in April 1882 and has 1.7 million passengers, it's another interchange for the Alamein line. It's a small line and operates only to and from Camberwell on weekends, but it also operates to and from the city in the morning and afternoon peak. What I'm showing you is a tram square at Riversdale Station. Currently there's 2 left in the entire Melbourne train tram network. This particular square carries Route 70 where you'd see a Class to Wattle Park at the store W Class tram at the park. Back on topic, when the train terminates at Camberwell, it goes into a 3-car siding between tracks 1 and 2. Which they also operate normally. When express trains arrive in the mornings, it stops at Platform 2, then they continue to use 2 till they arrive at Richmond. Slower trains continue to track 1 after the express train departs, and down trains still continue on their previous track to Box Hill. Then in the off-peak, express trains switch from Platform 2 after departing to track 1 till the direction change at 1 p.m. After the City Loop direction change, down trains arrive on Platform 2 for the 3 platform stations. Down trains switch from track 2 to 3, making room for Camberwell trains to terminate. It does get rough before the train arrives at the station, shown at this clip. Then at peak hour, a mixture of slower and express trains arrive at Platform 1. Then the express down trains arrive on 2 instead of switching tracks, and slower trains arrive on 3. In 1999, just to the side of Platform 1 are sidings that were built to represent the closure of the Jollimont Yard. Some trains in the morning passed this station for strange reasons, which we'll get to in a little bit. Finally, we have Burnley, which focuses on the Glen Waverley line. Like I said, it has 4 platforms. But it constantly gets passed in express trains most of the time of the weekday, other than that. If you want to change for Glen Waverley by taking a slower train to Burnley, Platform 1 is for up Glen Waverley trains, 2 is for up except East Richmond trains, while 3 doesn't get used till 12:30 p.m. Then finally 4 for the rest of the down trains. Let's talk about the Glen Waverley line. The line opened in 1888 and fully electrified in March 1922. Before heading to the stations, there's sidings between the Madden Grove level crossing and Monash Freeway. Usually there's Burnley services from Flinders Street. When they terminate, the train heads to the sidings, before heading out for the peak hour. We head to another tram square at Kooyong Station, where Route 6 adjoins, where you'd see D1 and Z3 class trams. Between Kooyong and Taronga, a sky rail was put in place in February 2019 to remove Torak Road level crossing. 2 stations down to the now grade-separated Gardner Station, where another tram square was connected till January 2016, trains would go slow past the square because it's at a busy road. Coincidentally, Route 72 not only goes from Gardner Station, it also goes to Camberwell Station. Down the next 7 stations, we head to Sindel, which is just a random station that terminates on morning peaks. The next station down, we finally arrive at Glen Waverley Station. This is the terminus for the line and has 3 sidings for trains that are not in service trains or Sindel services terminating to parking to the sidings. This is the only train line to go direct to Flinders Street, considering it uses Platform 1 to Burnley and never changing tracks. If you think about it, there's 4 types of trains at Fleet on the Glen Waverley line years ago. In 2013, a Siemens was undergoing testing for PID technology. I'm surprised it made past Hainton and Taronga stations. Then more recently, a Com ENJ was driver training to Glen Waverley. A HCMT train was sitting in the Burnley sidings. And finally, you can see Extrapolis trains all around the Burnley group. A station up from the Burnley local group is East Richmond. I would talk all day about this station, but Tate said already made a part of the station on his Richmond Junction video, so go and watch it and come back. Let's just skip what's already in Tate Set's videos and go the minor stations. Starting with Glen Ferry. Glen Ferry is a fairly busy station that is home to Swinburne University, and Glen Ferry Oval, home to the Hawthorn Footy Club till 1973 when they moved to Waverley Park. Some trains do pass through this station during peaks on weekdays, maybe due to people wanting to go to work or home faster. Our next station we got is Surrey Hills. This station is, at the time of making this video, has been demolished into a new station. Express trains pass the station most of the time in the morning. They pass through it every time at the off-peak. Then some trains do stop at weird circumstance, but still run express mostly. It's always satisfying to run express through this station while your favorite song plays the best part as the train rockets past. Our final station is Laburnum. Laburnum originally opened as a small curve station till 2006, when Middleborough Road level crossing was removed in late January 2007. Interestingly, there were plans for a middle track between the longer and wider station. Although trains sometimes skip this station, due to it being around less than a kilometre to Blackburn. In the 1870s, a forgotten railway line called the Outer Circle Line was opened, carrying from Oakley on the Parkenham and Cranbourne lines to Fairfield on the Hurstbridge line. It ran past to Malvern East along the Glen Waverley line, joining with the Alamein line, then past East Camberwell Station, then finally to Fairfield. Unfortunately, the line has been closed and part of it turned into bike trails. Note the old overhead wiring at the end of Alamein station. Since there's a lot of timetables to name, I'll just show them on screen. Finally, we have what's next in the upcoming years. As part of the project, Glen Waverley Station will be getting an extra line to increase patronage. And no, Burwood Station won't be getting another line, instead near the suburb of Burwood will be getting a new station. Finally, Box Hill will also be getting a new line way underneath than it already was. All of what I'm showing you is a big suburban rail loop project, setting to be completed by 2029. As a bonus, it'll also go to Doncaster and the airport once it's complete. That has to be the biggest video I've did so far. I'd like some positive and honest feedback in the comments as we trail through over 100 years of this particular group of lines. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.